Randy, and right back to our phone calls. Next up is Josh, listening in Memphis, Tennessee. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Hank. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I've got a very strange question for you, but
Okay.
and that pertains to the possibility of extraterrestrials, because about 5 years ago, I had worked late, and I walked outside of the office to go home, and my eyes got fixated on what I thought was the brightest star I'd ever seen. So I stared at it for another 20 or 30 seconds, and then it shot out of the atmosphere at lightning speed. That's always stayed with me and made me wonder. It seems every day on TV there's more and more stories about aliens and all this information coming out about ancient aliens and how so many different civilizations have hieroglyphics on structures and artwork and artifacts that kind of allude to alien beings in their society. And I wanted to get your input on all this.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Bible doesn't tell us one way or the other whether there are extraterrestrial beings. There simply is no comment in the Bible on that. But all the evidence that we have in the visible world points against the notion, and there certainly is not a hint in the Scriptures that UFOs or extraterrestrial beings do exist. There's nothing in the Bible that would suppose that. Now, again, as I said, there's nothing that would absolutely preclude that either. But what we see in the universe when we look at Earth is we find that it is uniquely situated, such that not only we can discover other things about the universe, but it is uniquely situated such that we can know that God created us and put us on a privileged planet. And therefore, there's a sense in which we can say that Earth is very unique, despite the fact that there are many who would give a contrary opinion. There's a great DVD that we offer through the ministry called Privileged Planet, which gives the evidence for the uniqueness of the Earth within the universe. But as far as hard evidence, again, on UFOs is concerned, it is, well, hard to come by. 80% or more of them can be attributed to natural causes. And the messages from the extraterrestrials is typically that man must accelerate his technological, spiritual evolution in order to avert global catastrophe. So if you look at the message, the kind of messaging you're getting in the programs that you're alluding to, they're certainly not commensurate with a biblical worldview or message. And the other thing that I would say is, look, if in fact this is real, why don't we find real evidence? Why don't we find a UFO that's crashed? Why don't we find an extraterrestrial that has been captured? So hard evidence against is hard to come by. I had the experience the other night taking a walk with my wife where we were looking at two bright lights in the sky, and they looked for all intents and purposes as something that didn't correspond to an airplane, didn't correspond to a star, and we're trying to figure out what it was. Now, as it turned out, we figured out later on, yeah, it really was an airplane because we watched it long enough, and what appeared to be something other than an airplane lit up. It was, in fact, an airplane. So our mind can play tricks on us. But the reality is there's no hard evidence, and the fact of the matter is, even if there were extraterrestrials, it doesn't disprove anything in the Bible. It doesn't disprove a biblical worldview.
I understand. So there's no way that Ezekiel's vision of a wheel and a wheel can be interpreted as such?
Well, no, because, the one thing that we want to do when we interpret the Bible is rightly divide the word of truth. So we don't want to read the Bible in such a way that we take the allusions in the Bible and then misinterpret them and draw inordinate conclusions. First of all, what you see is this is not a UFO in Ezekiel, but it's clearly a vision of the likeness and glory of God. And of course, Ezekiel specifically tells us that. Furthermore, visions are symbolic and thus should not be taken literally. And finally, I would say the living creatures are identified as cherubim, not as UFOs. So the message was from God to Ezekiel, not from UFOs. And the messages of UFOs, as I mentioned earlier, are typically occultic.
And to, I guess, beat a dead horse as far as hard evidence goes, you don't give any credence to the possibility of beings or ships being found and being held.
Well, I'm not precluding the possibility, but I'm just saying that there isn't any hard evidence to date that extraterrestrial beings exist.
Okay. And I guess I just wanted to get your opinion on if there is the existence. How do humans deal with that?
Well, the Bible deals with three categories of beings in terms of angels, humans, and then God. And then it explains the ontology and the relationships of those beings. It doesn't in any way communicate God's relationship to UFOs. So if that were a reality, or extraterrestrials, I say, if that were a reality, then we'd have to, however God relates to them isn't given, we're not given any information on that.
Well, I appreciate your time.
You got it.